How's it going, everyone? I'm Zach with Team Z Motorsports.
And I'm Nick.
And we finally got some of the parts in for Brian Davis's Foxbody build.
An old school, it looks like a D&D K-member with some looks like our solid motor mounts. So we're gonna swap out the K-member because we know ours is lighter. And like Brian says, we're gonna put a shorter set of A-arms on because they've went to, I believe they're SN95 spindles and brakes, so they could have a 5-lug on it. So we're gonna pull them back in under the car and help a little bit with aerodynamics and handling, and so that you won't have any rub issues.
First thing we're going to do is the front suspension. We're going to start with our small block Ford K-member. We're also going to be putting on our lightweight spindles and control arms.
And then we have some strange struts that are going to be going on the car as well, with the strange brake kit. This is the caliper. It's a pretty slick unit. Brake brackets that bolt right up to our spindles. This is the wheel hub. It goes with the bearings that come in. They go right on there. And some rotors to match.
All right, so first thing we're going to do is K-member. So you ready?
Yep. So this part of the build, we've already installed the K-member, and I went ahead and installed the control arms. They're pretty simple. Make sure you install this front bolt forward to rear, or else it'll crash into the steering rack boot, and you obviously don't want that to happen. This is our bump steer kit. I've just loosely installed all that. We'll get to that in a later part of the video. So part of this build, what I'm going to show you how to do is the strange coilover assembly, the strange brake install, and the strange hub assembly, all that. So first off, I'm going to put the strut in there. So our caster camber plates are already installed on this car. They come zip tied together so you don't lose the spacers. I'm going to cut them with some dikes, or if you're easily triggered, side cutters. I like placing this on here so it's one less thing to fight, because these can be interesting to put in by yourself anyway. Would be nice if Zach could help me, but he's going to use the excuse that he's holding the camera and he can't, so had to do it myself. Now these, for clearance wise, I prefer to put them in front to back. They just clear better when you get the rotor on there and everything. Top one has more slop than the bottom one, so that's typically easier to install that one first. I don't have a big enough wrench for this one, so unfortunately I have to use my crescent wrench. All right, now once we've got that installed, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna install the hub first. So make sure you pack this inner bearing and install it first before you put the oil seal on. Slide it up onto the shoulder. Then you're gonna take your other smaller bearing that you've packed, slide that in there, and wipe your hands off because that grease is going to get everywhere. Put our keyed washer on there. Zach had to do some work and go grab it for me. Now he's gonna complain about it all day. So there's a lot of people gonna argue on how to do the wheel bearings and the proper torque. This is usually the way I do it. It's the way I was taught. You're just gonna spin it and tighten as you go. Once you get it to where it's pretty snug on the rotating, just back it off like an 1/8 or a 1/4 turn till it moves snugly but still pretty freely. Then you install this little lock nut or whatever you want to call it on there with your cotter pin. Just put that through. Now take some needle nose. All right, and as you're going and you put some miles on the vehicle, you might have to go back and re-torque these if it feels like you got a little bit of slop. Just pop that all off, just tighten it like a 1/4 turn, make sure it still rotates pretty good. So after we got that, Strange offers a little dust cap. It's pretty sweet. It's got an O-ring seal on it. Of course, the other side went on, you know, pretty cleanly, but this one's gonna fight. And that's that. So next up, I'm gonna put the brake bracket on. As you can see, they're both etched. This one has an R for right side. This one says inboard side. So you wanna face it that way. We're gonna put it on just like that with the bolts that I got. So the brake bracket goes on this side of the spindle. Kind of self-explanatory because you can't get it on the other side because you'll hit the strut mount. So you can't really screw it up unless you want to go grinding on stuff. I would use a power tool if I could, but of course I can't get one in there, so I've got to actually do some work, unfortunately. All right, so once you have that installed, go ahead and we're gonna put our rotor on. As you can see, these are directional. They have arrows right there. These want to be flared out because that's going to take the gases that it makes and fling it outboard. So wipe off all the oil and everything on it. And then I've just got some regular 1/2" fine thread nuts, but you can just take some lug nuts and just put 2 on there is enough to keep it back down. You don't have to tighten these down, just snug them up for the next part of the caliper install. All right, next up is these, the caliper. So with that comes this little rod that's already in there. You're gonna wanna pull this out, but we're gonna need it when we fit the calipers in there. And then we have a bunch of shims right here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in without any shims, see how the pad feels on both sides of the rotor. If there's an equal amount of slop, then we're gonna just leave it as is. If not, you're gonna wanna keep putting shims in between the caliper and the bracket until the brake pads float on either side an equal amount. And then you don't have to crank these down for the fitment, just snug them up. All right, now they're snug. Now we take our pads. This is a pretty cool design. You just slide them in from the top. As you can see, we didn't have to shim this side. I had to add 1 shim to each bolt, so make sure you do it equally. I had to add 1 on each side of the other, the driver's side. But this one, they're pretty even on both sides, so we're just gonna leave that as is. So next, now you take your connecting rod that holds your pads in, pull your pads out just a little bit. Gonna put the aluminum piece in. Once you get that aluminum piece in there, then you're gonna take your bolt, put that all the way through with the nut. All right, we're gonna take that. Since we didn't pull it back out, make sure to go back and just re-snug up your caliper bolts. And that's the install of the strut and brake assembly with hub from Strange. See you in the next video.